Hello everyone. My name is Roman Malashin. I'm a real estate expert at BD Realty. Today we will discuss the real estate market in Georgia, what has happened to it in recent years, what awaits us in the future, and what 2025 will be like for real estate investors in Georgia. How did the real estate market in Georgia fare in 2024? I can already say for sure that 2024 was quite a successful year for tourism in Georgia. The country welcomed 7.4 million international travelers, of which 5.1 million were tourists. The number of visits to Georgia last year increased by more than 4% compared to 2023. Tourist visits grew by 9%. Meanwhile, the entire flow of visitors compared to 2019 has only recovered to 78.7%. There are many reasons for this, from changes in consumer sentiment to the imitation cheap of air travel and the cost of Georgian tourism itself. After the pandemic, prices for products on the shelves of Georgian stores have also risen significantly. This also plays a significant role. The largest growth in tourist flow has been recorded from China, India, Israel, various other European countries, as well as the West, the USA, and Canada. Additionally, the year 2024 showed good statistics for the growth of real estate transactions. In 2024, more than 75,000 real estate transactions were recorded. This is approximately 8% more than in 2023. As for the average real estate price, it increased by 10% in Tbilisi and by 12% in Batumi. In the suburbs of Batumi, prices rose particularly noticeably due to the growing interest in low-rise and private houses. The share of foreign investors in the transactions was 25%. Meanwhile, Russians remain as always the leaders with 24% of all transactions with foreigners. According to statistics, Russians have grown so fond of Georgia as a country for investment that it ranked second among other countries favorable for real estate purchases. Residents of Israel, Kazakhstan, and Belarus also purchased real estate in Georgia. It is worth noting that the political crisis in the country did not cause significant changes in the tourism sector. There was a slight decline in December of only 10%, but it was offset by a successful summer in 2024. The Georgian market and tourism sector are reorienting towards Asia, both Southeast Asia and Central Asia. The Gulf countries are maintaining traditional markets of Russia, Turkey, and Azerbaijan. What trends are being observed in the real estate market? More and more global hotel brands are turning their attention to the Batumi real estate market and are building their five-star hotels here, according to the standards of the world's best hotels. There is an increase in the number of guests in branded hotels from 60 to 90%, depending on service, quality, region, and other factors. The average occupancy rate of premium segment hotels during the season exceeds 90%. Another trend is the development of suburban resorts in Batumi. Recently, investors have shifted their focus from city properties to those in resort suburbs. In Gonyo, Kobuleti, Makinjauri, Chakvi, for example, brands like Wyndham Grand have now entered Gonyo. Radeshandratana. This consistent trend is linked to the growing demand for leisure. Tourists seek places without crowds, hustle, and crowded beaches. The next trend is the steady increase in real estate prices due to the development of tourism. Georgia ranked third among the best European countries to travel to and fourth among the best countries for tourism, according to the UNWTO ranking. It is also essential to note that Batumi won the World Travel Awards in the category of leading all-season destination. What awaits us in 2025? How will the market develop? In the future, in our opinion, we are still expecting a continued rise in real estate prices. Demand creates supply. The demand for real estate and rentals in Batumi is constantly growing. This happens year after year, and it is all evident in the statistics. Accordingly, there will be more demand and prices will start to rise further. And this will continue for many more years. The next thing we can observe is that there will be more infrastructural real estate projects, because some unique properties that have their own direction and concept are more interesting to investors and more appealing for subsequent resale. Accordingly, all these unique properties sell better. That is, I always see this. In my cases, when we buy a unique project and in a year we can resell it with a good profit. About some of my cases, I will talk a little later. And I would also like to highlight the country's infrastructure projects separately. For example, the construction of a new international airport in Tbilisi is planned to be built on the site of the former military airfield in Aziani. Additionally, a terminal will be built at Mestia Airport. And by 2025, it will be possible to travel from Tbilisi to Batumi entirely on a 4-lane highway. And by the fall of 2025, it will be possible to drive through the Rikoti Pass. After which, the construction of an additional 2 lanes of the bypass road in Kobuleti will begin. This will objectively ease the traffic in this direction. I would like to specifically highlight that an IT hub is being built in Kutaisi. It will combine a technopark, laboratories, conference halls, and some consulting centers for small and medium enterprises. There will be an interactive museum and offices of international technology companies. So it should be understood that Georgia, this country is not only for tourism, but also for IT specialists. In addition, it can be noted separately that there is an increasing demand for commercial spaces, and more entrepreneurs from other countries, not just from Georgia itself, are turning their attention to Georgia for doing business. After all, it is one of the most favorable countries for starting your own small business. The tax system here is simplified. I myself opened a sole proprietorship here in Batumi, and I am very surprised at how simple everything is here. How easy it is to pay taxes even though it needs to be done monthly. Therefore, there is a trend that commercial properties are increasing in price, demand is growing, and accordingly, their price is rising. So pay attention, Sabonti, to this direction as well if you plan to invest in Georgian real estate. How are the conditions for developers changing? In recent years, the installment system from developers has undergone certain changes. About a year and a half ago, the standard conditions were always a 30% down payment and installments until the end of construction. But because the trend is changing now, the market is changing, it is growing significantly, competition is emerging, good competition, so accordingly, the installment conditions have changed. Now we can find in pre-sales, and even not always in pre-sales, but at the early stages of construction, 0% down payment. Extended installments after the end of construction, which will still continue. We even currently have properties available that are already in the final stage and will be completed in 2 to 3 months. But they have an installment plan, approximately 1.5 years, 20 months, even 24 months, and you can also contact us regarding these matters. Naturally, real estate prices have also undergone some changes. They have naturally increased according to market economics. At the same time, the competitiveness compared to other countries in terms of prices. Georgia remains at a very high level. For example, currently, the standard prices of a good developer in Batumi start from $1,100 per square meter. In Tbilisi, it is usually $1,200 per square meter. It is worth noting that the annual growth also remains at a high level and is about 15 to 20%, which makes real estate investments more attractive. Naturally, I am talking about some average prices, because there are more standard developers, standard projects that are more intended for living, not for investment. They can be significantly cheaper. And most often, these are more long-term projects that take longer to build than usual. This happens. At the moment, developers are paying more attention to the quality of building materials and the deadlines for project completion. All of this must be very competitive compared to other developers. Accordingly, it is very important for buyers to pay attention to the reputation of the developer, to study perhaps some previous projects, and to generally learn about the financial situation of this developer. And to be honest, I would leave this matter to the professionals. So be sure to contact us for a consultation. Service and infrastructure. This is an important aspect that we have already talked about a little earlier. But let's repeat once more. This is necessary for any modern residential complexes being built in Batumi, in Tbilisi, and generally in Georgia. As an example, earlier we discussed Batumi Primary Residence. This is a residential complex for IT specialists with a unique concept. It precisely combines infrastructure and service. In addition, this is an almost completed complex, and even now they offer a long-term installment plan for almost 2 years. By the way, you can find more details by following the link to the video. It's not too late to invest with the aim of making a profit. What is the expected income during the construction phase? Investing in Georgian real estate for investment purposes is still very profitable, and he will continue to be so in the future. Profitable, but many investors need to adjust their expectations compared to previous years. That is, it is important to understand that the real estate market in Georgia, in Batumi, has become more mature. What does this mean? It means that better developers are entering the market, offering higher quality, and consequently, competition is increasing. And prices won't be as high, nor will there be such large fluctuations in the future. But at the same time, you minimize your risks because the market is truly mature and there are no local developers who just take out some mortgages and build on their land inherited from ancestors. And very often there are unfinished constructions. In general, I want to say that investing is possible and even necessary. Indeed, it is a good market for stable investment and to earn a good income. Perhaps not like it was before, when people could double their investment within a year, that is, up to 100%. Now it's quite difficult to do that, but for example, from my side, I have a fairly recent case of my client, who is a rather large investor purchasing a significant number of units. We took a good property at the pre-sale stage, despite the fact that the developer, as a legal entity, was unknown at that time. However, all the representatives of this developer were very well known in the real estate market. We knew about this, so we advised our investor to invest there because we were confident in it. He trusted us, and as it turns out, we recently started selling his assignments, and there is stable profit. In 8 months, we achieved an annual return of 60%. That's from the invested funds, of course. I believe this is an excellent result. Initially, when we entered this project for investment, he was expecting to achieve around 40 or 50% in a year. Here, we achieved this in 8 months. In the future, we will continue to sell it off, and the profit will accordingly grow. How is the rental market changing? Regarding the real estate rental market in Georgia, in recent years it has shown steady growth, which is due to an increase in demand from foreign investors and tourists. And in 2024 in Tbilisi, for instance, there was an observed increase in demand for apartments by about 6.5% compared to the same period in 2023. This indicates that there is continued interest in renting housing in the capital, but this is also observed in Batumi. However, I think we will not see a sharp change in price, but there will be stable demand in the future, despite the rise in prices. There is some interest in renting real estate in Georgia, especially in tourist-attractive regions. This interest will persist and support market stability at any time of the year. I would like to remind you that Batumi received the Tourism Oscar as the most popular destination in Europe for year-round tourism. Accordingly, there is always demand, despite the pronounced seasonality. In the summer, Batumi is still visited by a large number of people. Well, it should be understood that the capitals also actively visit Tbilisi. And some additional ski resorts, which are becoming more and more numerous here, are developing infrastructure, becoming more service-oriented and of higher quality. And more Europeans are paying attention to Georgia's ski resorts. What is profitable to invest in right now? What no longer works? Investing in Georgian real estate remains a very popular, interesting and promising direction. But it should be understood that we are moving away from old trends on how to make money from it. That is, certain speculations and short-term investments. In other words, we are definitely moving away from that, and it doesn't work. Let's consider some of them. For example, the first option is buying property for long-term rental. In my opinion, this strategy is very well suited primarily for the capital. That is, we take some good popular areas, for instance, Saburtalo, Vac, which are considered more prestigious and very profitable to rent out there. There are also the districts of Didu, Isani, which are more budget-friendly, yet very popular among expats, migrants, some IT specialists, and generally for different population groups. If we are talking about another type of investment, for example, investing in new buildings for resale, then, again, in my opinion, it is interesting to focus on Batumi here. Because here, again, the market is growing, it is developing rapidly, there is high competition, and they offer us good installment terms. And installments are the main tool to pay attention to when acquiring real estate for resale. After some time, that is, if we take the minimum entry threshold might be there. 0%, which we also mentioned earlier, maybe 10%, 20% is still a very convenient, comfortable entry threshold. At the same time, a long-term installment plan that extends beyond the construction period makes it very profitable for us to resell later when the real estate market has already grown. That is, the value of the property you purchased has also increased in price because these are already the final stages of construction. And from the invested funds, we receive much more profit than if we had purchased immediately at full price. We can also use our property for short-term rentals, like daily or weekly rentals. Primarily, of course, for us, resort real estate is particularly suitable for this. That is, these are ski resorts, Batumi and the suburbs of Batumi. That is, they are perfectly suited for short-term rentals. But there is a very important aspect here, how you want to rent it out. If we rent for short-term, firstly, as we mentioned, there must be infrastructure, there must be a competitive advantage, and it is very important to have a good management company that will handle the daily rentals. That is, a local management company located directly at this residential complex can handle this well. You can also turn to a private management company, which is even more interested in renting out your property profitably because they also earn their profit. And if there is such an opportunity, many of our clients purchase a large number of units and they manage the daily rentals themselves. For them, this is a full-fledged business. And it is important to understand, even if we only consider the tourist season, which lasts there 4 to 5 months in Batumi. During these 4 to 5 months, you can earn such a profit that it will cover the entire annual profit from long-term rentals. However, it is very important to understand that it must be a competent, good management company, or you must take this on yourself. Batumi or Tbilisi. What to choose? It is important to understand that Batumi and Tbilisi are two completely diametrically opposite cities in terms of their vibe, so to speak. And accordingly, the choice of city will depend on what you are looking for and what, in principle, will be closer to you. Just for comparison, we will list some pros and cons of Batumi and Tbilisi. Why do investors choose Batumi? Well, of course, first and foremost. After all, Batumi is a seaside resort. There is consistently high demand directly in the season, no matter what. Investors themselves often gladly come to their own investment properties just to relax and enjoy the beauty of Batumi. Also, do get the constant increase in tourist flow. After all, Georgia already ranks first in the world in terms of tourism development. By 2024, the number of tourists reached record levels in the entire modern history of Georgia. And more people prefer Batumi as a seaside resort. Accordingly, there is a growing demand for housing. Furthermore, as a consequence, the next point is the high rental yield, from 7% to 14% annually. An investor can earn from the rental of real estate, both long-term and short-term, from the invested funds. And this is higher than in most European cities. It is worth noting that more and more new global brands are entering Batumi. Indeed, the number of global hotel brands that have now entered the market is simply astonishing. Let's take the suburb of Batumi Gonyo. Brands like Wyndham Grand and Radisson Roman have entered there. For example, on the Alley of Heroes, there are Hampton by Hilton and Louvre. In the year 2029, we are expecting the arrival of a brand like Hyatt. This always attracts a new high-paying segment of tourists. Again, we repeat, this is a rapidly growing real estate market. It shows a stable growth of 20% per year. Next, let's sort things out with you. Tbilisi. Tbilisi is the capital of the country. Accordingly, it is also its historical, cultural, and business center. Here, it is observed that this is a commercial and entertainment city where investors, entrepreneurs, and tourists from all over the world gather. Tbilisi, unlike Batumi, is not as dependent on the season. The demand for real estate is more stable throughout the year, as the city is the administrative center of Georgia, and accordingly, this somewhat reduces the impact of seasonal fluctuations. Tbilisi is the economic center of Georgia, and many business centers are concentrated here. People often organize startups here. Additionally, the economic development attracts many professionals and investors, which can also increase the demand for housing. The capital has a more developed infrastructure compared to Batumi. Major medical institutions are located here. Educational institutions, shopping centers, and cultural sites. The transportation system is well developed, and generally, access to public services makes life in Tbilisi likely more comfortable. And this also attracts people who are looking for housing. But also a quality life with access to all necessary amenities. In Tbilisi, the secondary real estate market is very developed, especially among the local population. There are still fewer quality, profitable new constructions compared to Batumi, so the city is more suitable for rental strategies, possible flipping, and of course for personal living. Despite this, there are also attractive options among new constructions. What are the risks when buying real estate? Risks when purchasing investment real estate will always be present, but they can always be minimized. It is important to understand that here they are not so significant. What are the primary risks that can be highlighted? This is currency instability. There is always a certain influence of fluctuations in the lari against the dollar. But it is important to understand that the lari is one of the most stable currencies in Europe. The next point, we can highlight market saturation. Sooner or later, this may happen because more and more interesting competitive offers are appearing. And at some point there will be market saturation, so it's always necessary to keep an eye on trends and what is in higher demand. That is, if at the moment studios are in demand, whether for rent or purchase, you should go for studios, and in the future this might change. Larger spaces, 1+1 as they call them here, Euro 2-room apartments. There is also a trend now towards branded real estate, so pay attention to the trends. The next point for risks to highlight is any political changes. That is, the recent situation that primarily occurred in Tbilisi and in principle affected all of Georgia. In my opinion, we actively observed it, did not significantly impact the real estate market. So at that moment, indeed, there was a certain decrease in demand because people were watching to see what would happen next. Now the market has practically stabilized. But as a risk, it is still worth highlighting. The next point is probably the most important of those listed, which I leave for last. It is still possible to encounter an unscrupulous developer or a situation where the developer was unable to complete the construction due to various events. And accordingly, it is very important to learn all the background information about the developer beforehand and to turn to a good developer who will deliver their projects on time. This is exactly why we are here, so be sure to contact the BD Realty real estate agency. We will help you minimize all the risks we have discussed. Let's summarize. Summarizing this video, it can be confidently said that the year 2025 promises to be significant. An interesting stage for the Georgian real estate market. New opportunities are emerging, dynamic development, growth prospects, and all of this makes this market attractive for investors. But it's important to remember that any successful investment requires thorough preparation, market understanding, and the right approach to enter comfortably. For this, choose reliable partners who will help you navigate the Georgian real estate market and make your journey as comfortable as possible. Real estate specialists at BD Realty will be happy to assist you with this matter. Subscribe to our channel to stay updated on all trends and changes. Submit an application via the link in the description if you're ready to discover new opportunities in the Georgian real estate world.